Okay, so Pan was one of the movies I saw this Saturday. Now, is it just me, or did anyone else coming out of the theater to see Pan, if you even saw it, did you think that it felt more like a Baz Luhrmann piece? You know, the guy who did Moulin Rouge, Great Gatsby, Australia, Romeo and Juliet? The visuals reminded me a lot of that. Alright, so Pan tries to tell the origin stories of Peter Pan. And quite honestly, I was a little excited for this movie because I love Peter Pan, I love the movie Hook, I love the other Peter Pan, and I even love Finding Neverland. And the thought of him having his own origin story sounded really cool. In this origin story of Peter Pan, Peter is this orphan. And one night, him and all the other orphans in the orphanage get stolen by pirates. Pirates from Neverland. And in Neverland, they're sent to these mines to mine for pixie dust. And ruling over all the pirates is Blackbeard, played by Hugh Jackman. In this tale, Peter teams up with James Hook before he was the evil Captain Hook in order to save Neverland from the tyranny of Blackbeard, as well as save all the fairies and find out who his real mother is. And for the most part, I don't really mind the story at all. Yes, there are things I'm going to go into detail that I didn't like, but overall I did like the backstory, the lore, and there's something compelling about it. With that being said, this is definitely not a good movie. So let's start off with the good. I think Levi Miller did a pretty good job as Peter Pan. This is before he's the iconic Peter Pan, the boy who never grows up. And in this movie, you see his journey from a pretty normal but adventurous kid who eventually evolves into Peter Pan and becomes brave and becomes the Peter Pan we all know and love. It was a nice progression and I thought it worked. But with that said, all the other performances in this movie I really didn't like. Hugh Jackman as Blackbeard does have his pretty damn good moments. There are definitely moments where he's given it his all and he does some pretty good dramatic stuff when he's not shouting and yelling and being absolutely over the top. However, there are moments in his performance where it almost reminded me as Eddie Redmayne when he was the villain in Jupiter Ascending. There's one scene in particular that reminded me of so much of Jupiter Ascending, and there's this moment where he's looking on the map, he learns that people have escaped the mine, and so there's this moment where he's talking really low, and then suddenly, out of nowhere, he just slams his fist on the table and just screams at the top of his lungs. And it reminded me of Eddie Redmayne when there's this one moment where he's like talking really low and then just mid-sentence just starts screaming like crazy. I do like the backstory and the lore of Neverland. Now, I'm sure it's not the same as any other Neverland stories. I never really saw a origin story for Peter Pan, if there is one. I like the whole fairy versus pirates lore. And whenever they did flashbacks and told a tale and it was all CGI, it was actually pretty well done. That was probably the most magical this whole movie ever is. Ultimately, I like a lot of the ideas that Pan has, but it's executed in a way that just makes me groan and just roll my eyes. So I definitely see potential in the story of Pan, but overall it's still not done to its full extent. There are moments where the CGI in the background in Neverland looks cool and looks brilliant and beautiful, but it's only for brief moments. The rest is cartoony looking, and like I said, it reminds me of a Baz Luhrmann movie. It reminds me of that really cartoonish CGI that's meant to be stylistic, but just makes it look confusing and looks cartoony and looks like it doesn't match with the actual actors. That's what I feel that most of the CG is like in Pan, where it doesn't feel like it fits. There is one extra little thing I do like, but it gets into spoiler territory, so I'm going to leave that for after I give a rating. Okay, now down to the really bad and the really ridiculous stuff in Pan. There are so many moments where not only did I feel like it was a Baz Luhrmann movie, there are also a few moments where I almost thought it was like Batman and Robin. Sorry, did I say that out loud? There's just something about the CGI style and the over-the-top acting and the characters that make me believe that Joel Schumacher just pops up on set some days and just says, "Okay, remember people, this is a cartoon." God, Garrett Hedlund that played Captain Hook, if you've seen him in the trailer and how he talks, that's how he talks practically through the entire movie. And so if you're really annoyed by seeing how he talks in the trailer, you're gonna be really annoyed throughout the whole movie. And whenever Peter is just like standing in a higher spot than Captain James Hook, Hook would for some reason just like hunch over like Igor, like tilt his head, and he'd just like speak to him like this the whole time. And I know I can't speak the voice, but oh my god. Also, for some reason in this movie, Hook and Tiger Lily get together, and yeah, I was definitely completely worried for the acting as soon as the evil nun comes in. Like at the beginning of the movie, he's in an orphanage and it's run by nuns, and the head nun is like trying to be the Trenchable, but she's not, and she's comical in a really bad sense. Like she's trying to be intimidating, she's trying to be creepy, she's trying to be scary, but it comes off as just bad. Like there's this one moment in the movie where Peter Pan is flying and she's seeing him fly for the first time, and instead of being shocked, she just goes, "Argh." Also, for a movie that's almost 2 hours but not quite, this goes by really, really fast, and it's jarringly so. Like there's some moments where they don't let the scenes linger. It feels like there's more to the scene, but then it just cuts off and they're go to the next scene as fast as we can. We just gotta get through this as fast as we can. We're not. It just goes so fast, so to the point where there's no breather room. There's no moments where you feel like you're getting a full scene. Oh god, and I gotta talk about the costume designs in this movie. At no point did I feel that the costumes were believable, even when it was the real world and it was supposed to be in World War II. And you'd think a director that has done a lot of period pieces, you'd think that the costuming would be good. I know he's a director, not a costume designer, but it's like he's done so many period pieces. He's done Pride and Prejudice. He's done Atonement. Yeah, this is the guy that did those movies. Even the Pirates. When I saw the Pirates for the first time, I didn't think they were pirates. I thought they were circus performers. They look like circus performers. And sure, I guess it's meant to be cartoony, it's meant to be imaginative, but there's something really off and way too colorful for pirates. The natives are all like really colorful too, and I guess it's Neverland, and they have feathers of the birds that have really crazy feathers, but it just looks crazy. You know what else is really crazy about the natives? Whenever they die, they poof into smoke. I'm not joking. There's this one moment where the pirates are attacking the natives, and you're seeing death and you're seeing people die, but then as soon as like a gun would go off, you just see this explosion, and not just an explosion of smoke, an explosion of smoke that's really colorful and vibrant. Like there's blue and oranges and yellow, and all colors of the rainbow are blown up in smoke. So not only do the natives blow up when they die, they blow up colorfully. That's another thing about this movie. It doesn't realize what kind of movie it's for. It doesn't know if it's strictly for kids or strictly for adults, and it tries to find the in-between. Like there's several movies that I do feel are family movies. Movies that have enough things for kids and enough things for adults to love as any age. But there's something about Pan that it doesn't work. It tries to be dark and serious, but then it makes it really lighthearted to the point where you can't feel that darkness. You can't feel like it matters. For instance, the natives dying. You're supposed to grieve and be serious and actually care about these natives dying, but they blow up in a colorful smoke, and it's like making it lighthearted. Now I get it, a lot of swashbuckling has its comedic moments in it because Hook had it. All the other adaptations of Peter Pan had moments where it was a little funny and lighthearted and adventurous. But there's something about Pan that just goes too much to the lighthearted and too much to the adventurous to the point where you can't really take it seriously. And probably the worst thing about this movie is the flying. Yeah, the flying with Peter Pan, it's supposed to be iconic, it's supposed to be magical. Instead, we don't even get the kid on wires. We should have the kid on wires and green screen. That would have been better than what we got. No, instead we got fully CGI Peter Pan, and it looks like it barely fits in a video game. No point did I feel that Peter Pan was really flying. Oh god, and Smead's in this, and his character is the most annoying side character I've seen this year. I'm sure a lot of people covered this one already, but I'm gonna have to say it anyway because I've noticed it as well, and it's the music. But yeah, there's a moment when Peter gets to the mine at the first time, and all the kids in the mine, all the adults, and all of the pirates, everyone is suddenly yelling, "Here we are now, entertain us." And then comes along Blackbeard, and he's muttering the lyrics to Smells Like Teen Spirit as he walks up. And if you've seen the trailer, it's the moment where he leaps onto the railing, like right before it. That's when he's like just muttering the lyrics to Smells Like Teen Spirit. And not 3 short scenes later, they use the song Blitzkrieg Bop as they're kicking people off the plank to fall to a terribly long drop. Yeah, there's no way that first kid survived. He's probably flat right now, or exploded from the impact. It was a frickin' long drop. Right down into the rocks. They don't show that though. Now I get that some music that is way after the time of the movie is put into movies like that because there's a sort of, I think it's a genre jukebox musical or something like that, I think. It's where they have a musical but they're using songs of today's era even though the setting of the movie is before that. Moulin Rouge does this. Like, every song is completely not in World War II era or whatever era Moulin Rouge was. But it works because it's consistent and it's a musical. Pan is not a musical. In fact, there are only 3 songs in the movie and they're not even full songs. It could be probably only 3 minutes of actual singing in the movie. The movie's 111 minutes. That does not consist of musical. Then there's this weird trippy moment right before Peter Pan makes it to Neverland the first time. I guess it's more along the lines of the portal that gets you to Neverland, but they're in outer space and he's floating. Really bad CGI moment, but he's floating and they're in space and he touches a planet and the planet's like the size of a ball and it was Saturn. And then just before he gets to the island of Neverland, they're flying over a sea and there's these spheres of water just floating around. Each had its fish and one has a crocodile and just... Also, Peter Pan's origin story is the prophesized hero, the stereotypical fantasy hero, but I don't mind that much, but I can definitely understand why people hate it. Oh god, I just remembered this. There's this really cartoony, really terrible fight with Captain Hook, and, well, before he's captain, I guess, and the toughest warrior that the natives have. And they fight basically on a bouncy house without a roof. You know what? I was originally going to give this movie 2 stars because at least there's something I kind of liked about it, But now going over all the ridiculous things in the movie and now remembering and recalling even more and more things that I don't like about the movie, I'm going to change my rating. I'm going to give Pan 1.5 stars. So were you one of the few people that actually saw Pan? What did you think about it? Go ahead and comment. If you haven't seen Pan, well, what is your favorite Peter Pan movie? Now that the rating's out of the way, let's go into spoiler territory and talk about some more things that I kind of liked and things that I really disliked. Alright, for one, the ending was definitely one of those things where it was meant to be a cliffhanger and it's meant to be the first of a trilogy or something. Because in the end of this movie, Captain James Hook and Peter Pan are still friends. And Captain Hook still has both his hands, even though they showed the crocodile in the trailer. Oh God, speaking of crocodile, I forgot to mention one scene. Another ridiculous scene. The scene with the crocodile and the mermaids. The mermaids are this really cartoony, full-on CGI. And they're naked. But thankfully their hair is really long and flowing and always covers their breasts, so no nudity. Guess what Peter says after he gets saved by the mermaids and Captain James Hook, he's like, who are they? And he's like, oh, I think you're gonna like them more than I did. Let me tell you, my dad got a kick out of that one. He could not stop laughing. And I just bowed my head and rolled my eyes. But yeah, Hook and Pan are still friends by the end of this movie, and so it feels like, okay, well, how do they become enemies and stuff? Oh, and somehow the Jolly Roger, its name is on the back at the end as before the credits roll, but it's in neon lights. This is World War II. Where did they get neon lights? Was there neon lights during World War II? I'm not sure. But something tells me there wasn't. Anyway, there's something a little bit more in spoiler territory that I did like about the film, so I'm going to tell you now. I did kind of like the fight between Blackbeard and Tiger Lily. I thought that was the best action in the entire movie, and it was just for a brief moment. There's something about the fight with Tiger Lily and Blackbeard that felt real, felt like genuine swashbuckling. It had a little bit of comedic moments, but not enough to make it really funny and lighthearted. It felt like it was real danger. It was the only time I was on the edge of my seat. And despite it being in a really ridiculous setting, because it's, let's face it, here's what the conflict is. You got two giant flying ships flying through this huge mountainous cave full of crystals and pixie dust and fairies all around, and Blackbeard is fighting Tiger Lily off of these wooden posts that I can't remember what they're called, but the things that stick out the front of the ship. They're fighting on that, and as these ships are colliding and crashing, and it's ridiculous and over the top, but there's something that felt real and genuine danger. And then it gets even more ridiculous. Yeah, the point in the climax of the movie where I just thought, oh, they just threw everything out the window, is when Peter actually learns to fly. Yeah, the point when Peter flies and it's supposed to be uplifting, it's supposed to be the best moment of the movie, and is ruined by terrible CGI and the fact that it made him look like he was turning into Super Saiyan or something. No, his hair didn't glow blonde, he didn't become buff or anything, but there's something about it. There was fairies flying all around him, and he's like, we gotta work together to stop Blackbeard, and all the fairies start messing with the pirates and throwing them off the ship and stuff, and doing these little things, and then when it gets to Blackbeard and his time to get punished, Peter's just like, "Hah!" And so then, he didn't say yeah, he said something. I can't remember. But he just like goes like this, and all the fairies swarm, and then they push on Blackbeard and push the ship down, and then it crashes into oblivion. And there's something that just felt really wrong about that whole end of the climax. So that's all I wanted to say in the spoiler territory, and that's all I wanted to say about Pan. If you have more thoughts, please comment, because I'm willing to discuss with you of the movie. So As always, this is Bruce Gifford, and this was Just My Opinion.